All right, folks, hello and welcome to ParentTaughtDrivingCourse.com. So today's lesson is going to be basically the first lesson after your student gets their learner's permit. So what you'll want to do is once you verify that your kiddo's gotten their learner's permit, the first lesson, you'll want to make sure that the first lesson takes place in a large parking lot, free of obstructions. Make sure that it's flat and you've got plenty of space and room to work with. You'll want to make sure that prior to starting the actual physical driving of the vehicle, you want to make sure that you discuss certain things with your student. You want to go through the pre-drive task. You can obviously access our YouTube channel. We have a video there specifically on the details to the pre-drive task. Once you discuss the pre-drive task, you'll get in the vehicle, make sure that your student's obviously in the driver's seat, and you know, the first 20-30 minutes or so you'll want to spend, and it really just depends on how comfortable you feel, but you'll want to spend some time talking about the interior controls, you know, the gauges, where the ignition is, the turn signal, hazard lights, horn, obviously the brake and accelerator, the gears. You'll want to talk a little bit about what the gears mean, the different letters, for instance, P for park, R reverse, N for neutral, D drive, so on and so forth. So you'll want to talk a little bit about that. And then of course, proper seat position is going to be really important. You'll discuss that with your student. How to engage your seat belt. We have a video on our YouTube channel about that. Some details with regard to adjusting your seat belt properly. Adjusting your mirrors, that's something that you'll want to definitely discuss in detail. Obviously, that's important. There again, we have a video on our YouTube channel, ParentTaughtDrivingCourse.com, specific to adjusting your mirrors. So once you get into those types of details, you'll want to make sure that you also discuss the proper hand position, you know, putting your hands at 9 and 3. We've got a video for that as well. The hand over hand or hand to hand technique. Once you feel comfortable and you've discussed those types of details with your student, then you'll want to go ahead and get started with the actual driving lesson, right? So you'll want to, and part of the purpose of today's lesson is getting the student accustomed and used to the feel of the vehicle. Every vehicle drives a little bit differently. You know, if you're in an SUV or a truck, you're gonna sit up a little bit higher. Your blind spots are gonna vary depending on the type of vehicle that you're in. The response of the accelerator will differ based on the type of vehicle, or rather the engine, 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder, those types of things. So today's lesson really is going to be about familiarizing your student with the vehicle, the interior of the vehicle controls, and how the vehicle handles. We'll focus a little bit on again, proper hand positioning and you know, left and right hand turns. So when you get ready to begin the actual driving lesson, be sure to give your student really specific instructions. In other words, okay, cover your brake, put your foot on the brake, put the vehicle into drive. Those types of things. You're going to make a left-hand turn up ahead, or you're going to make a right-hand turn, or slow down, slower, slow down to a stop, come to a stop. Those types of things. So you'll want to make sure that you're specific with regard to that. Now keep in mind that when you're planning your route and your lesson, you want to factor the weather in. Today, you know, it's obviously overcast, but it's not going to be a huge factor in terms of what we're trying to accomplish for today's lesson. In other words, we're not talking about driving, you know, in heavy traffic, morning rush hour, interstate or highway, that type of deal. So in terms of the weather for today's lesson, this shouldn't be a huge factor. So we'll go ahead and get started. Remember to focus on the student getting accustomed to the actual vehicle. And you'll want to make sure that you're patient as well. You know, it's one of those things where there are some nerves on the part of the student. There are obviously going to be some nerves on the part of the instructor. So just be patient, and we'll get you through this. So the first thing is, obviously, you want to make sure that you put your foot on the brake. After confirming that your seatbelt's been engaged and you're familiar with the controls and all that good stuff. So you'll put your foot on the brake, put the vehicle in drive. You're going to shift into drive. hands at the 9 and 3 position. Even though we're in a big, large parking lot, you do want to glance left, glance right. In other words, treat the lesson as though you were actually driving on a road, and you'll want to make sure that your student is using their blinker. You're going to want to make sure that they're glancing in their mirror in their mirrors every few seconds, checking their blind spot, those types of things. So let's go ahead and proceed. Once you let your foot off the brake, go ahead and accelerate gradually. And what you're going to do is you're going to work on tracking, and by that I mean making sure that the vehicle stays within a specific area. So because we're in a parking lot and not necessarily have driving lanes, you'll want to make sure that you pick an area for the student to drive straight. So just like this, you focus on tracking, and I'm gonna go ahead and make a left here, put my blinker on, check right, check left, check right, check left, hand over hand, and then I'm gonna make another left. Once again, hand over hand. You want to make sure that your speed control is relevant to the area that you're driving in, or relative to the area that you're driving in. Meaning, you want to keep it in this situation. You want to keep it around 5 to 10 miles an hour. Again, you want to make sure that you use your blinker. So left turn blinker. I'm going to make another left turn here. I'm going to let off the accelerator, cover the brake, and quite honestly, I'm actually not accelerating too much. Makes it a little bit easier for these maneuvers, because again, the student is just beginning. So left turn again, blinker, hand over hand. You want to accelerate, so you'll work a little bit on left turns, and by tracking I mean a lot of times students have a tendency to look, novice students have a tendency to look directly in front of the vehicle, which causes them to do this. They weave within the lane. So by looking at a distance, it allows a student to maintain control and to stay within their lane. So once again, left turn, and then we'll go hand over hand. So you'll practice this a handful of times until you feel comfortable. When you're working on stops, for instance, you'll want to make sure that you tell your student exactly where to stop. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and make a stop. I'm going to let off the accelerator. You're going to pick a point where you want them to stop, let off the accelerator, cover your brakes, start to slow down, slower, 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 until the vehicle comes to a stop. And once it comes to a stop, you should feel a slight jerk. Okay, now again, we're talking about a novice student, so if you notice, you'll feel a slight jerk, right? And then you'll take off again, you'll accelerate, look left, look right. But with a novice student, what will happen in most cases is that they're still getting used to the brake, so you'll feel something like this, a little bit more jerky. So you'll work on starting and stopping. Once again, left turn, so left blinker on, hand over hand. You want to glance in your mirrors, make sure that you're looking left and right. We'll make another left turn, and then we'll practice some right turns. We're going to accelerate through the turn. Now, one of the things that you'll work on are some of the things that you're going to work on are the actual turning techniques, hand over hand and hand to hand. One of the things that I tell my students is whenever I'm going to put my right blinker on, by the way, I'm going to turn right. Whenever you're making a turn, whether it's right or left, if you accelerate coming out of the turn, it'll help the steering wheel glide through your hands. So we're going to do another right. We'll stay within the parking lot here. We'll put the right blinker on, make another right hand turn, and gradually, again, I'm keeping my speed around 10 miles an hour. I'm going to make another right turn. I'm going to accelerate out of the turn. And here we go, one more. Right blinker on. We're going to go hand over hand and accelerate out of the turn. And so again, the focus today is basically just getting your student accustomed to the vehicle, to the accelerator, the brake, familiarizing them with the vehicle controls, and making sure that they're comfortable while behind the wheel of a car. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and slow down to a stop. I'm going to go ahead and put my right blinker on, and what we're going to do is we're going to simulate a right turn from either a stop sign or a stop light. So anytime you're sitting in an intersection and you're going to turn to the right, you want to make sure that you're in the correct lane. So if you're turning right, you want to make sure that you're either in the right turn lane or the right lane. If you happen to find yourself in the wrong lane, then go ahead and proceed through the intersection until you can make the turn safely. You don't, in other words, you don't want to make a right turn from the incorrect lane, either the left lane or a center lane if it's a 3-lane thoroughfare. So unless of course it's a turn lane, then you're good to go. There are cases where there are turn lanes that are to the left of the right lane, where you'll have a double right turn lane. Anyway, what we're going to go ahead and do is we'll put our right blinker on, we'll check left, we'll check right. Hands obviously at 9 and 3. You'll want to go hand over hand, accelerate through the turn. As you're coming out of the turn, you want to accelerate. Let the steering wheel glide or slide through your hands. Check right, check left. And that's just short of it. Now, if you're having a difficult time with your student in terms of the right and left hand turns, a good idea is really just to do what I call figure eights. Part of the reason I like to start my lessons in a big flat parking lot like this, unobstructed, is because it does allow you a lot of room and a lot of flexibility. So what we'll do is we'll form figure eights, and that helps the student work on not only their hand-eye coordination and hand-over-hand turning technique, but it also allows them to work on their accelerator and brake control. So what I mean by figure eights is I'm going to circle around this little area here. I've got my left blinker on. I'm going to go hand over hand, and we're basically just going to turn. A U-turn in essence. So we'll U-turn left, and then we're going to put our right blinker on, and we're going to U-turn to the right. So hand over hand, cover your brake, and then you want to accelerate out of the turn. And that's all you're doing, is just figure eights, if you will. So hand over hand as you're making the maneuver, and then you want to accelerate out of the turn. We'll try this one more time. I've got my right blinker on, cover your brake, slow down, hand over hand. You can make these as wide or as sharp as you'd like. Again, keep in mind it's about getting the student accustomed to the vehicle, the accelerator, the brake pedal, and the control devices. So we're going to go one more time, hand over hand. We're going to make this U-turn, and we're going to accelerate out of the turn. So that's about it for today. And again, it's one of those deals where if you do feel comfortable with your student, then it's okay to take them into a residential area to work on right and left hand turns. But certainly my advice is to start in a large parking lot, an area like this, so that you have room and flexibility to work with your student on their vehicle control. So thanks again. I appreciate you guys tuning in. ParentTaughtDrivingCourse.com. We will see you soon.